أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نباهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قوم اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا وإذ اعتزلتموهم وما يعبدون إلا الله فأووا إلى الكهف ينشر لكم ربكم من رحمته ويهيئ لكم من أمركم مرفقا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Salam alaikum. Inshallah we would do the dua for. Oh, wait, why name is Saha? Every now and then, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم كن وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك تهوى وتمتعه فيها تبيدا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. صلوات. Brother Jawād, since you don't want to do the Arabic, that goes for the Arabic parts. And then we go with Farsi. ای مرغ جان کبوتر صحن و سرای تو، هفت آسمان صحیفه مدح و ثنای تو، چشم رضا به ماه رخ دلربای تو، چشم فرشتگان خدا جای پای تو، دلهای عارفان حرم با صفای تو، تو خود جوادی و همه عالم گدای تو، دست گدای همه عالم به سوی تو، دل برده از امام رضا ماه روی تو، پیشانی ملائکه بر خاک کوی تو، جام بهشتیان همه پر از سبوی تو، ذکر خوش امام رضا گفتگوی تو، زیبد که او هماره بگوید ثنای تو، بسم الله صحیفه دلهاست نام تو، خیل ملک ستاده به عرض سلام تو، عالم رهین کثرت جود مدام تو، بالاتر از ثنای خلایق مقام تو، نور از همچو آیه قرآن کلام تو، رویت مسیح از نفس جان فضای تو، وابسته بر وجود تو این عالم وجود، آرند جن و انس به خاک درد سجود، مشهور در میان امامان شدی به جود، بر جود و بر قیام و سجودت همه درود، آیات غیب را رخ نورانیت شهود، بچه خداست روی محمد نمای تو. صلوات. تو بضعه امام رضا نجل حیدری، سر تا قدم پیمبر و زهرا و حیدری، چشم و چراغ زاده موسی بن جعفری ابن الرضای اول آله، پیمبری از هرچه گفتند و نگفتند برتری، گوهرچه قابل است که ریزم به پای تو. جز تو که خسب گشته ز جوده تو بهر بر کی داده، فاطمه بر قاتل پدر جایی که می کنی توبه دشمن. چنین نظر باور نمی کنم که برانی مرا ز در. از من اگر چه نیست کسی رو سیاه تر، دارم امید بر تو و لطف و عطای تو. مأمون به پیش علم و کمال تو شد حقیر، افتاد در حقارت و افکن سر به زیر. یا ابن اکثم آمده در محضرت اسیر، با آنکه در مدارج تعلیم گشت پیر. در محضر تو کم بود از کودک و صغیر، شد محو علم و دانش بی انتهای تو. مامور کوچک و تو سلیمان عالمی آقا جان، جان امام هشتم و جانان عالمی، مدفون به کاظمینی و سلطان عالمی. ماه رضا و مهر فروزا نه عالمی، در هر قدم نثار رهد جان عالمی. جان چیست تا کنن خلایق فدای تو، یک عمر بوده آتش غم شمع محفلت. مأمون هزار مرتبه خون ریخت در دلت، دردا که یار جانی تو گشت قاتلت. حل شد به زهر عاقبت کار، مشکلت بودی جوان و قتل گهت گشت منزلت. خاموش گشت زمزمه های دعای تو، در بین حجره سوختی و دست و پا زدی و سوز سینه ناله با غربت آزدی. با کام تشنه مادر خود، با کام تشنه مادر خود را صدا زدی و سوز ناله شعله به عرض و سما زدی. فریاد بحر تشنه لب کربلا زدی، بر اشرف ناله واویلتای تو. هرچند هیچ کس ز غمت با خبر نبود، دیگر سرت به نکنه و تشت زر نبود. در قلب داغدار تو داغ پسر نبود، لبهایت از حسین دگر تشنه تر نبود. دیگر به سنگ ماه جمالت سپر نبود، جاری نگشت خون به رخ دلربای تو. تا دور چرخ فلک فصل خزان دارد و بهار، روزی چو روز جد تو نبود به روزگار. روزی که شد به نیزه سر آن بزرگوار خورشید، به سر برهنه در آمد به نزل کوسار. میسم بیار در غم او چشم اشکبار، کن گریه تا که سیل شود اشک‌های تو. Inshallah we be the true followers of Ahlul Bayt, especially Imam Jawād. Recite the last salawat.
Help me recite the last salawat for a beautiful recitation. Up next, please help me welcome up our dear brother Aziz to recite poetry in Urdu. Majlis Muhammad.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلی آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، کیا کہوں دل میں خیال آتے ہیں کیا کیا یا علی، آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی، ہاں مدینے والوں کو تھا میرا رونا ناگوار، ہاں مدینے والوں کو تھا میرا رونا ناگوار، آج سے ہو گانا یہ لوگوں کو شکوہ یا علی، دشمنوں کو تم نہ آنے دینا میری لاش پر، دشمنوں کو تم نہ آنے دینا میری لاش پر، پردے شب میں میری میت اٹھانا یا علی، بعد میرے جان کیا ہو حال بچوں کا میرے، بعد میرے جان کیا ہو حال بچوں کا میرے، ان کو ایذا ہو تو ہوگی مجھ کو ایذا یا علی، فاخ کر کے آفتوں سے میں نے پالا ہے انہیں، میں نے پالا ہے انہیں، تم خیال ان کا میری خاطر سے رکھنا یا علی۔ کیا کہوں دل میں خیال آتے ہیں کیا کیا یا علی۔ جانتے ہیں آپ یہ نازوں کا پالا ہے حسین، جانتے ہیں آپ یہ نازوں کا پالا ہے حسین، وہ اگر روئے دلاسا اس کو دینا یا علی۔ تم کو زحمت ہوگی لیکن میری تسکی کے لیے، تم کو زحمت ہوگی لیکن میری تسکی کے لیے، میری تربت پر میرے بچوں کو لانا یا علی۔ رہ گئے اپنا کلیجہ تھام کر مولا سعید، رہ گئے اپنا کلیجہ تھام کر مولا سعید، بولی زہرا جب خدا حافظ تمہارا یا علی۔ کیا کہوں دل میں خیال آتے ہیں کیا کیا یا علی۔ آج رخصت ہو رہی ہے تم سے زہرا یا علی۔
اللهم صلوات محمد وآل محمد۔
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، الحمد للہ رب العالمین، لا حول ولا قوة الا باللہ العلی العظیم، والصلاة والسلام على اشرف الانبیاء والمرسلین وخاتم النبیین وسید المرسلین ابی القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعن الله الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. for the benefit of the marhuma for whom tonight's program has been sponsored, Marhuma Afshan Arjuman Banu, daughter of Safdar Ali Khan, and also for the souls of all of your marhumin and marhumat and all the marhumin and marhumat. Please recite a Surah Al-Fatiha. Respected brothers, sisters, we've gathered here this evening for commemorating the Shahada anniversary of our 9th Imam, Imam Muhammad Al-Jawād Al-Taqi. And on this occasion, I want to express my condolences to the living Imam, the Imam of our time, Ajal al-Farj Sharif. And to all the lovers and the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, may Allah reward you for taking this effort to participate in this blessed gathering. It's very important. It's a part of our identity. It's our responsibility to make sure to keep alive and to participate in these very important gatherings, which bring about barakah in our lives that we perhaps cannot fathom. Inshallah, what I'd like to do in today's speech is to mention a few points that we can take from the history around Imam Jawād alayhi salam and how he became the Imam and some of the uniqueness about the Imam alayhi salam. When we go back and we look at what was happening in the life of Imam Ar-Rida alayhi salam, there was, say salawat please. As the Imam alayhi salam was aging, there were some people who were opportunists. And they said that the Imam is getting older and he doesn't have a son who is going to be the successor. They saw this as an opportunity because for them, the dunya was very strong. And they thought that they might be able to somehow, influence, and maybe they would be the source and the center of attention for all the Shias. But the Imam alayhi salam was blessed with Imam Muhammad Al-Jawād alayhi salam, and there was some who weren't aware of this happening. And in one hadith, we're told that there was a companion who went to the Imam and he says that, it seems that you're not going to be given any child anymore, you're getting old. The Imam alayhi salam hadn't given up any hope, and he told him, in fact, actually, Allah is going to give me and bless me and grant me with a child who is going to be a son. And the quality of this son of mine is يُفْرَقُ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ. It is by him that truth and falsehood is going to be separated. He is going to be what the Quran terms as a furqan, a separator between truth and falsehood. And this is what happened. Imam Muhammad Al-Jawād alayhi salam was born, and he was from the lineage and from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. But Imam Ar-Rida alayhi salam was then martyred when Imam Muhammad Al-Jawād was only, according to some reports, 7 or some say 8 years old. And in doing this, when this happened, Imam Muhammad Al-Jawād became the youngest of the Imams. Never before was there an Imam who was that age when he became the Imam. And this was something that was new for the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that somebody who other people would consider to be a child, other people would consider that age of 7 or 8 to be an age which is immature. And here the Shias were instructed very clearly from Imam Rida alayhi salam that after me, the hujjah of Allah on the earth is my son Muhammad, Abu Ja'far. He's the one who's going to be your imam. Now, there are some people who might look at this and say that, well, isn't this something which is kind of like maybe, na'udhu billah, something to be a little bit shy about telling other people, that one of our imams became the imam at the age of 7 or 8? Some people might think that. Because after all, usually people who become leaders are mature. At least, let's say, 40s, 50s, 60s, when they've experienced, that's typically the way that they are. What happened here? Why is it that this happened, that a child is being put there? Is that something that we need to maybe be shy about telling others about, and maybe, kind of not look into it too much? Actually, brothers and sisters, one of the sources of pride for the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is that among the imams, there were not just one, not just two, but there was 3 of them who became the imam at a very young age. The 9th imam, the 10th imam, and the imam of our time. And this is a point of pride. And inshallah, I want to look at this. Like, what is it? How can we understand this? Because sometimes we get confused. You might see this when we do salah. When we have somebody who is a child who's not baligh, some people get really kind of excited. They're like, oh no, there's a child who's not baligh, right? We need to make sure that there's somebody else who's the point of connection for them, right? Why is that? Because sometimes there's this conception that, okay, if a child's not baligh, they can't even hold a connection in jama'ah. Now, you know that the correct hukm, the correct ruling on that is that if a child is mumayyiz for salah, meaning that they know how to pray, right? They know what prayer is about and they know how to pray, they can be a connection in Salat al-Jama'ah. But we have many rulings in Islam which say that if somebody is not baligh, then they cannot perform this responsibility. For example, let's say that there is a child who has a lot of property. They themselves do not have, if they go and let's say they want to sell something like a large sum of money, they want to, buy some Bitcoin or something like that, that, according to Islam, it would not be a valid transaction. Why? Because the child is not baligh. In Islam, let's say that there's Islamic law, let's say that there's a group of children who are not baligh. Let's say there's a group of boys who are, let's say, from, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Is it allowed for one of them, and it's time comes for prayers, is it allowed for one of them to come and lead the prayers for the others? Islamic law says that the only one who is qualified to lead the prayers for a group is one who is baligh. Even if you don't have a baligh person there, it's not correct according to the maraji that one of them should step forward and he should lead for the others. That's how important it is for somebody to be baligh according to Islamic law. So sometimes when, this is those who grow up and they understand the laws, right? They come to this like, wait, but we have imams who, for example, the imam of our time at 5 years old, Imam Jawād at 7, so these are things which bring up questions. One thing I want to state here is that these laws that we learn, they are general laws, but when it comes to these matters, when it comes to the matter of who is it that has the authority, when it comes to who is going to be the leader, when somebody is ma'asum, and that isma is something which is granted by Allah, then that person is accepted from these types of rules. And what is the proof from this? For this, it comes from the Quran itself. The Quran teaches us that at times throughout history, Allah has made a child be the representative of His on the earth. We have the example of Nabi Yahya alayhi salam. We have the example of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. There was one time where one of the companions, his name was Ali ibn Asbat. Ali ibn Asbat was from Egypt. He had traveled all the way to, I believe it was Medina, to see Imam Muhammad al-Jawād alayhi salam. And when he comes to see him, he's looking at him in a lot of detail. He's trying to almost memorize everything that he's seeing. Now, why is he doing this? The hadith says, he says to Imam Muhammad al-Jawād, he says that when I go back to Egypt, I want to be able to describe for the people exactly what I've seen. I want to be able to tell them everything that I saw, all your features, everything about you. And at that point, Imam Muhammad Jawād, he knows what is going on in Ali ibn Asbat's mind. That he's going to have to go to Egypt and he's going to have to educate the Shias who are there that your Imam, now that Imam Rida alayhi salam has been martyred, now your Imam is going to be somebody who you might think is just a child. You might think that it's an age which is immature, but that's not the case. So in that gathering with Ali ibn Asbat, Imam Jawād alayhi salam, he goes into sujood and he makes a dua. And then he quotes a couple of the ayat of the Quran. One of the ayats he quotes is the verse about Nabi Yahya alayhi salam, وَآتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ الصَّبِيَّةِ. Allah said in the Quran that we gave him the hukm. The hukm in the Quran, sometimes it refers to the authority of prophethood. In this case, that's what it is. We gave him the authority of prophethood when he was a sabi, he was just a child. And then he quotes another verse from the Quran, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَبَلَغَ أَرْبَعِينَ سَنَةً. He says that sometimes Allah chooses to give hikmah and wisdom to somebody who is arba'in sana, somebody who is 40 years old. Right? Typically, if somebody is going through the proper process of tarbiyah, they are following the sharia, they are reflecting, they are learning, then they go through a process of maturing, and that process, it hits its peak at 40 years old, typically. But the Imam Jawād says that sometimes Allah chooses to give that hukm at an earlier age as well. So he uses the Quran to show that this is the way it is, that even when Allah chooses, there can be somebody who is even at a younger age, and that person can become the Imam. Now why? What is the philosophy behind this? This is very interesting. Why is it that Allah wanted to arrange things this way? Inshallah, I want to give a few reasons, but you can, inshallah, bless this gathering with the recitation of a beautiful salawat, please. One of the reasons why, according to the historians, the expert scholars who have analyzed the incidents that took place, one of the reasons why Allah chose to put the imama in somebody who was that young was because it was a test for the people. When they're commanded to follow and do something that they didn't expect, how are they going to react? One of the things we find in history is that for the most part, all of the Shias who followed Imam Rida alayhi salam, eventually they followed Imam Muhammad Jawād, eventually they followed Imam al-Hadi, eventually all the way Imam Askari, all the way until the Imam of the time. So for the most part, that they were tested and then they passed that test. And this was something that Allah wanted as a blessing for them, right? It's something which is good for them to be tested in that manner. But it's very interesting if we look at some of the other reasons why Allah wanted to do this. One of them is because Allah wants it to be the case that people very clearly know that Imam Muhammad Jawād alayhi salam is the Imam. Now, what is the way that they are going to know that? When the Abbasid Khulafa are, just clamping down so tight on the Shias, they're controlling access to the Imams. How is it they're going to know? One of the ways that they'll know is when they see that somebody who is so young, he's performing miraculous acts, then they'll be convinced that, okay, this is not coming just to something that he learned by himself. Definitely this is coming from a higher source. And we see this in the life of the Imam. One time the Imam alayhi salam was traveling, and on the outskirts of the city, he came across this one lady who was crying. And next to her, there was a farm animal, like a cow, that it was dead. And he goes to her and he says that, my dear lady, why is it that you're crying like this? She says that this animal of mine was my source of my entire livelihood. Everything I was getting was from this cow. And now it's died. What am I going to do? So Imam Jawād says that, would you like to see the cow be revived? And she says that would be great. And he begins to make dua. and sure enough, soon afterwards, the cow comes back to life. She's very happy, and she asks him, she says that, tell me something. Are you Isa ibn Maryam? Are you Jesus? Because she had some knowledge that in history, the one who was famous for bringing the dead to life was Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And he says that, no, I'm just a servant of Allah. But I am from the family of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's one example. There's another example where there was one of the scholars of the time who came to the Imam alayhi salam, and the Imam could tell that he was a bit uncomfortable, he was a bit hesitant. So he says that, before you ask me your question, I'm going to tell you what you're here for. I know what you're here for. You're confused. You're in a state of doubt as to how is it that Allah could make somebody who is so young the Imam. Isn't that right? He says that yes, that's correct. So the Imam says that, well, what would you like me to do? So that individual, he says that, can you show me a miracle? I want to see something that will convince me. So the Imam says that, sure. And soon afterwards, we have this in a hadith that the Imam's asa, his walking stick, that came to, it was able to speak. And it bears testimony to the imamah of the Imam. He said that it says that innahu mawlaya imamu hadha zaman wa huwa al-hujjah. He is the Imam of the time and he is the hujjah. And that's something that convinces that man. And we have other examples of these miracles. But brothers and sisters, what's very interesting is that there were many times where the Imam alayhi salam was able to convince, and people were clear that he was the Imam, not on the basis of miracles, not on the basis of cows coming to life and sticks talking, but rather because they were able to see that this individual was somebody who was guided by Allah. There was one majlis that took place when he was 10 years old, where they say that he was asked 30,000 questions in that majlis, one after the other, and he was just answering them again, one after the other. I don't know how, you look at the number and you're wondering, how can that even be reasonable? How can you fathom that? But he was able to do that. And many other cases where they would ask him things, questions, difficult things from the Quran, from fiqh, from this thing and that thing, and the Imam alayhi salam was able to guide them. And all the doubts that they might have had, they became dispelled. There's a very beautiful hadith that we have from the father of Imam Jawād alayhi salam, Imam Ar-Ridad. One time, there was a companion who came to him, and he asked him, he says that, tell me, why is it that different prophets were given different miracles? Right? You know this, right? I'm sure you've come across this tradition before. Why is it that, for example, Nabi Musa alayhi salam was given the staff and then the hand? Why is it that Nabi Isa was given this miracle and that miracle? Imam Ridha alayhi salam explains that in the time of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, the prevailing science and the prevailing sort of art was sorcery and magic. And so Nabi Musa alayhi salam was given something that would totally dominate and obliterate whatever was being respected at that time. It would be very clear to the experts that this is something that cannot be man-made. This is something from God. And that's the way Nabi Musa was successful. At the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, there was a lot of interest in medicine and treating people and healing people. Nabi Isa alayhi salam was given something that none other at that time was given. And it was very clear when he performed his acts that he was sent by God. During the time of our Prophet, Imam Ridha alayhi salam explains that the prevailing discipline at that time was the language and rhetoric. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given something, the Quran, that was so eloquent that anybody at that time, was clearly aware that this is something from none other than God. Now, this is, brothers and sisters, this next part is very interesting and very important. The companion Ibn Sakit who asked Imam Ridha this question, he says, so tell me, what is it that you have been given? Now, of course, the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, they were those who were explaining the Quran to the people, so they also had the Quran. Of course, they had access to the miracles of the other prophets as well. But what does he tell Ibn Sakit? He says that we have been given something which is the source of our domination and our superiority over others, what is that thing? We have been given the aql. We have been given the intellect, the rational faculty. Our aql is such that those who want to will be able to recognize the truth of the truthful ones. And those who want to can recognize the falsehood of the false ones. So brothers and sisters, if we connect this now to this question, why was the Imam given the Imamah at such a young age? There's a very important point here. That Allah wanted to show people that whatever system they had at that time of understanding what is more superior than the other, what is more respectable than the other, Allah wanted to come and completely knock that system down. It's not based on your tribe. It's not based on your seniority. It's not based on the number of years you've spent studying in different learning circles. It's not dependent on your wealth. No. What matters is the liyaqa, that aptitude, that honor and dignity that you have. And here, Allah chose to give that honor in the form of that aql and that ilm and that knowledge to somebody who was 7 years old. And this is a very important point. Allah doesn't look at our man-made systems and say that, okay, well, because we put value on that, therefore it has value. No, Allah gives us the system. He says, if you want to know the truth, you go and find it from me. Use your aql to understand that you are not capable of doing it. This is something very important. In today's world, we have these values which are being attacked. For example, one of the values is that of modesty. Modesty is something which, you go to typical modern society in the West or in the East, right? Modesty is not something that people put a lot of value on. Right? Modesty of speech, modesty of conduct, modesty of interaction, modesty of dress. These are not things that people talk about. You're not going to find, high-profile workshops where they teach you about modesty. No, they'll teach you about things which will give you a lot of wealth fast. They'll give you a lot of popularity. You can become a social media influencer fast, right? These types of things. They don't talk about something like modesty. It's been a value that's deprecated. It's no longer important anymore. And sometimes, if we're not careful, we come and we say that, well, what's value? We say that, okay, well, what's valuable and what's important is whatever the predominant society is saying. And this then can be something which goes very much in conflict with our ideology. What we learn from these type of examples is that the values come from Allah. At that time, it was something new, right? It was a new thing. People were like, how can it be the case that after the Prophet becoming the Prophet at 40 years old, and then Amir al-Mu'mineen at his age, and all the way that suddenly now we're going to have a leader who is only 7 years old? Yes, indeed. When Allah wants to, then that's what it's going to be. And this is something which is a very powerful lesson for us. Please say salawat, please. Now, Imam Rida alayhi salam had said that by means of my son, يُفْرَقُ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْحَقِّ وَالْبَاطِلِ, that between truth and falsehood, there will be separation that takes place. One of the ways that took place is by the very essence of the Imam being 7 years old when he became the Imam. That itself was something which knocks that system down, whatever had been created before. But we also see that the Imam throughout his life, there was the principles that he adhered to were aligned with this, that he was always clear on what is the line between haqq and batil. There's a story that you've all heard of. It's worth revisiting from time to time. When the Imam was living in Medina, and there was a time where Ma'mun had martyred his father. Ma'mun summoned him to Baghdad. He wanted to see the son of Ar-Rida alayhi salam. So he summons to Baghdad, and then he comes. Now Ma'mun was going to meet him formally, but before doing that, he went on a hunting trip. And as he's going hunting, as he's traveling through the streets of Baghdad, there's a group of children who are playing at that time, and they see that the caravan of the Khalifa is coming, and they're like, oh, the Khalifa is coming, right? So they quickly, they leave the path, they clear it out so the Khalifa can go. And as the Khalifa's caravan is traveling, they see that there's one child who remains standing. So Ma'mun says to his caravan, stop right here. Who is this child? Why is he not moving from the path? I want to talk to him. And he goes and he speaks to him. He says that, why is it that all the other children left, but you're still here, standing right here? And he speaks to him and responds very clearly that the path is wide. There's enough room here for me to be here and for your caravan to pass as well. Why should I have to go to the side just because you're passing by? He asks him, he realized that this is a special child. Who are you? What's your name? He says, I am the son of Ali ibn Rida. He says, you must be Abu Ja'far Muhammad. You must be Muhammad al-Jawād. He says, yes. And this is the introduction that Ma'mun has with the Imam of the time. Now, brothers and sisters, there's something very important here. Normally, we teach our children the importance of respect. We want them to respect. But these values that we teach them, we always have to connect it to the source. Why do we respect? Right? We respect because we know that Allah Ta'ala wants us to respect, and out of respect for Allah, we respect others. Correct? I hope that's the way we're thinking about it. We're making it tawheedi. Now, what happens if there's somebody that Allah doesn't respect? For example, somebody who was responsible for the martyrdom of the Hujjah of Allah on the earth, Ma'mun al-Rashid, was a criminal. In that case, that same value of respect for Allah turns to a type of resistance, a type of standing firm against the enemy of Allah. And this is what we see in the life of Imam Jawād alayhi salam. And this is an incredibly important point when it comes to tarbiyah. Even, for example, as a parent, I need to teach my child to respect me. But let's say, na'udhu billah, there's one day comes where I tell my child something which goes against the rulings of Islam. I should have raised my child in a way where respectfully my child looks at me and says that, I'm sorry, my father, I am not able to follow you in this thing right here. Why? Because you taught me something which is more important, that I have to respect the law of Allah even over your wishes as well. This is very important. Right? This is what we see in the life of Imam Jawād alayhi salam. There was one time where Imam alayhi salam, he narrates a hadith, it's a very beautiful hadith. He says that there was one of the prophets of Allah, one time Allah revealed to him something. He says that you are somebody who is a zahid. You do zuhd in the dunya. And that's something which is very good. You're not attached to the dunya. You live simply. And as a reward for that, you will have a lot of ease. Soon enough, you'll have a lot of ease. Maybe you took some difficulties in this world, but soon you will have a lot of ease. Where? In the hereafter. Alhamdulillah. Then Allah reveals to the Prophet, He says that you have dedicated yourself to my worship and my worship alone. And as a result of that, you have been given a quality of izzah. You are somebody who has a lot of dignity in this world, and that's your reward for that. But there's one thing that I have to ask you. What is that thing? This is a relation. When is it that for my sake, you have befriended somebody, you have befriended one of my friends? And when is it that from my sake, you have taken as an enemy one of my enemies? You see how Imam Rida has said that he is a separator between truth and falsehood. Truth and falsehood is not something that we just understand. It's something that we act upon. It's something that we show in our lives. It shows up in the principle of tawalli and tabarri, of following the path of the truth. And not only that, we stay away from the path of falsehood. And this is something that Imam Jawād alayhi salam had shown through different stages in his life. We see that through his birth, we see that through his imamah, we see that in the instructions that he gave, we see that in his treatment of the khulafa, that he was somebody who always made this line clear between haqq and between batil. Now today we've gathered here for commemorating the martyrdom of the Imam alayhi salam. Inshallah, we want to spend a few minutes now trying to mourn for the tragic events that took place around the time of the martyrdom of Imam Muhammad al-Jawād. Please recite salawat. Imam Muhammad Jawād alayhi salam's martyrdom was something that was very tragic. Let's begin by sending our salams to the Imam. Assalamu alayka, Ya Aba Ja'far, Ya Muhammad ibn Ali al-Jawād. Let's take our hearts to the beautiful shrine of the Gharib of Baghdad. Imam Muhammad Jawād alayhi salam was also Gharib because he was summoned from his hometown Medina to Baghdad, and it was there that he was martyred. Let's take our hearts to that beautiful shrine in Kadhimain and seek the blessings of the Imams who are buried there by remembering the tragedy that took place. Imam Muhammad Jawād's wife was the daughter of the Khalifa Ma'amun. And even though she was the daughter of the killer of his father, we see that Imam Muhammad Jawād alayhi salam did not mistreat her. He treated her fairly. But when he and his wife were summoned to Baghdad, Al-Mu'tasim, la'natullahi alayhi, the Khalifa of the time, the uncle of the wife of Imam Jawād, he saw that this was an opportunity. He summoned her, he said that you are my niece, and he made up all these false accusations against the Imam. He sparked the seed of jealousy in the heart of the wife of Imam Jawād. And eventually he suggested to her with the help of one of the relatives that maybe you can do something to get revenge, pay back for this this type of jealousy that you're feeling. Maybe we can do something, we can plot, we can plan. And eventually they make a plan of poisoning the Imam alayhi salam. So it was in the home of the Imam that the Imam is now being forced to take from a plate of grapes. According to one of the riwayat, the Imam alayhi salam knew very clearly that this plate of grapes was poison. And he tried to get around. He said that I will have it at night. I won't eat it right now. But they insisted. All the different potential ways, and the Imam knew that there was no point in resisting anymore. And the Imam alayhi salam is now taking from the plate of poisoned grapes. Sallallahu alayka ya ayyuhal Jawād. Peace and blessings be upon you, ya ibn Rasulillah. O the son of the messenger of Allah, O Hujjah of Allah on the earth. O the one who was so generous among the people, he began to be known as Al-Jawād, the generous one. As the poison seeps through the body of the Imam, they must have seen that his skin began to change color. His wife, who had seen so much kindness from him in his life, she begins to realize that this is the end. She begins to feel regret over what she has done. She begins crying. The Imam tells her, "Why are you crying now? It's too late. The deed that you have done, it's now done. The poison is entering my body." The Imam alayhi salam is martyred in his own home, away from his homeland. Brothers and sisters, you know that in this short time we are in this world, there are some people that we find comfort in. We like to be around them. In the times of difficulty, we like to come close to them. We see that in the lives of the Imams and the Ahlul Bayt, at difficult times they had their loved ones around them. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was leaving this world, he had Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, Imam Hassan al-Hussein, Imam Ali alayhi salam. They had all gathered around him. When Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is leaving this world, he gathers his family around him. There's Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, there's Zainab, there's Hassan and Hussein. they were around him. When Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam was leaving this world, he too had his beloved ones around him. But we have these Imams, Imam al-Rida and Imam Jawād. They were ghareeb, they were away from their homeland. But there is one Imam who is truly ghareeb, who was separated from his loved ones. لا يوم كيومك يا أبا عبد الله. There is no day like your day, Imam Hussein, who was there from his family when the Imam was being martyred. There is that one lady who is atop the hill. She is glancing towards the direction of the Qatligah. She is seeing shimmer porch over the body of her brother. Ama fikum Muslim? Is there no Muslim amongst you? Ayuqtalu Abu Abdullah? Should Abu Abdullah be killed while you are just looking at him? But there's no response from those around. Zainab has to witness the martyrdom of her own brother in the land of Karbala. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this majlis from us. We ask Him to send the thawab of this majlis, if there is any, inshallah, to the soul of Marhuma Afshan Arjuman, Banu, daughter of Safdar Ali Khan, and to all the Marhumin and Marhumat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala